joining us virtually. We have Ann Granado.
Sorry, that's me.
Yes, I'm here.
UDOT Program Development. He's our UDOT Program Development Director. If he'll just share a brief update about the schedule for the project recommendations and approval in the state transportation investment funds. Ben, go ahead. Please, up there to the.
Thank you. Ben Hewitt, UDOT Program Development Director. Just wanted to do a brief update, UDOT programming update. So right now, UDOT and the Utah Transportation Commission are right in the middle of a series of programming workshops, an annual process to program projects. The slide on the screen right here shows where that process is at right now. And so we just completed the March workshop in Transportation Commission on this past month in St. George in Washington, Utah. So there is a link in this presentation of the workshop materials from that workshop. That workshop included some initial recommendations in some of the categories that that we were asked to give an update on today. So and those recommendations are included in the workshop materials. I may come back to this slide after we move forward a little bit to show some sequence, but the next steps going forward is there's another workshop in April. It's at the UDOT complex, the 28th of April, a couple weeks here. And then there's the following Transportation Commission meeting. And then some of the approvals related to that programming workshop do trail into the May commission meeting. I've included a link down at the bottom for the live stream option on YouTube for those meetings. And then also a link to the Transportation Commission website. So just as a quick background on the things that we were asked to report on today is the capacity, specifically the capacity project programs, what are called TIF and TTIF. So that's the Transportation Investment Fund and the Transit Transportation Investment Fund. So this is maybe a refresher to some of you, but for those of you that haven't seen it before, there's essentially two categories of funding. On the left, Transportation Investment Fund, and that consists of highway projects, and then also active transportation projects, paved, pedestrian, or non-motorized capacity projects is what's included in that. And then on the right, transit-related projects, or what we call TTIF, and those are transit capital projects and then active transportation projects that provide a connection to a public transit system. So all four of those categories, we included some initial recommendations in the March programming workshop based on the Commission's project prioritization process, which I've included a link at the bottom to that. There's a lot of info, and I don't want to get too far into the weeds here, but the schedule going forward based on those recommendations, we're currently anticipating requesting some approvals based on the discussion with the Commission in April for the highway category and the transit category. And then it's looking like the May meeting for approvals in the active transportation and first mile, last mile category. One of the reasons for the difference in timing is those projects require a 40% match. There's a nomination process, and so we're working with the locals that nominated those projects to finalize the details of the coordination. So I'll stop there real quick and see if there's any questions on the plan forward, and then I have one other item to touch on before I'm done here. So.
Any questions, board members, for Mr. Hewitt? Andrew, go ahead.
I don't, well, I have one question and one comment, Ben. You're presenting this information. It may feel somewhat technical, but just to give folks a reminder of the scope of what we're talking about here. Ben, can you just remind everybody here and online, how much, what is the source of money and how much money are we talking about over what time period? These processes that you're describing the Transportation Commission taking, just remind us the big picture scope of this, okay?
Sure.
And then my question would be for the local elected officials here in the room, thinking about their communities, I don't know, what should they be thinking about and focusing on? That may be a little tough question, but like put yourself in their shoes, and what do you think they should be thinking about as you're talking about this process?
Second part is a great segue into the last thing that I want to talk about, so thank you for that. The first question about the source of funding, and I may need some help. The TIF and the TTIF, if I'm understanding right, they are sales tax. They're funded through sales tax. The TIF was previously programmed into 2030. It did receive some one-time general fund money this past legislative session, which is what is related to some of the programming recommendations. That's the source of that. So I guess the time period that you're asking about, that on the TIF side, it's programmed into 2030 based on the projected revenues from that sales tax source. On the TTIF side, that is also that one's a little bit more complicated as far as the source of funding because it's tagged to gas tax, but it's through the TIF, a gas tax increment through the TIF fund. But that one, the time period that we're talking about or our recommendations are based on programming into 2025. So like a 2023, 24, and 25 is the time period that we're looking at with the recommendations that we've made in this last workshop. As far as what the locals.
And Ben,
Go ahead.
excuse
Yeah.
me, just total scope here over the course of the years out to 2030 that we're talking about is we're in the range of $5 billion. Do I have that right? Approximately, that is in the UDOT program between now and 2030 and state funding. And so I mean, a really tremendously significant investment package in our infrastructure. Do I have that about right?
Yes.
And maybe the money that we're talking about for the projects here is probably in the $700 million range. If you want kind of a magnitude on the importance of what we're programming here, that's for the TIF highway.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you have I don't remember the numbers. for the
Yeah,
other-
I mean, there's still work to be done to finalize the numbers and everything, but the initial recommendations in the TIF active category, we're looking at a shorter time period for those types of projects, but it's a little over 20 million-ish this go around. The TTIF transit was in the $50 million range for that 3-year period. And then the first mile, last mile was $10 to $11 million. Those numbers are what are currently being worked on. So they might have some slight fluctuation before approval. But
And
That's
then
rough
Terry, the 700-ish million that you're citing, that's what is being programmed now. That gets added on to the existing program. And so the 5 billion that I'm referring to is what's already programmed plus this added on. That's the aggregate, right?
Yep.
Thanks.
That leads to my question about the match. So the city would match 40%, and is that the millions of dollars that you're just talking about, is that the total, or is that the total plus the match? And is the match on top of that?
For example, the 20 million I mentioned for active transportation, that's just from the TIF. So the match is on top of that. So the absolute value of the projects would be the 20 million-ish would represent the 60% portion of that, correct?
Any other questions for Mr. Hewitt?
And then without any questions, I'll close with, I know there was some questions and this kind of ties into your question about the locals. UDOT and the Transportation Commission are going to, over the next year, work on the prioritization process and take an opportunity to update and revise. It's been around, the latest version has been around for a little over 2 years now. And it's a good time to incorporate some feedback and lessons learned. Some of the things we heard were to look for ways to simplify the criteria and the ranking methodology. Take an opportunity to possibly look at updating the criteria weighting. I know that there was a question there. It's an opportunity to incorporate some new legislation. I know that I think it was House Bill 462, is that correct? That has correct me if I say the wrong terminology, but the affordable housing priority consideration elements where if there's a local government that goes over and above the minimum requirements for the affordable housing plans, there's a possibility for priority consideration in projects. And then last but not least, it's a good time to sync the prioritization process up with the update of the long range plan and the regional transportation plans that are coming up here in mid 2023, I believe. So anyway, so from a local standpoint, throughout that year process that we're going to be taking, we're going to be working through some updates, but then there is going to be another round of nominations for the projects that specifically the active transportation, the transit, and the first mile, last mile, the ones that have the match. There's a nomination component to that, it heavily relies on the nomination process to feed that pool of projects in addition to the long range plan. So I guess more to come, and we will definitely coordinate with the MPOs and the local governments as that progresses.
Mr. Chair,
Please.
Mayor Fulmer from Vineyard had a comment in the chat, but not everybody in the room is watching the chat. So Mayor Fulmer, would you like to just offer your comment verbally?
Oh, yeah, thank you. I just said it's a great opportunity to meet and talk about your community and your needs with the east to west connection grids, and to be able to meet with the commission and thank them for the investment and the work that's being done on how much, they're taking the time to go around and tour our communities and see it. And it just presents a really good opportunity to thank them, to meet them, and then to talk about the needs so that they're there as they're looking over the money for investment. And just want to make sure people are getting out there and taking the time to do that.
Thank you, Mayor Fulmer. Any other questions for Ben Hewitt? Terry, any? Very good. I'd like to, one other thing to just kind of tag team on with what you said, Mr. Hewitt, is I'd like to have Wayne Benyon talk just a minute about federal funding opportunities there. Wayne?
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to briefly remind everyone that of an email that was sent. It's from Wasatch Front Regional Council, dated April 6th, and it's titled WFRC Federal Funding Opportunities Notice. This is the first of several emails, or a series of emails, that Mike and Miranda in our office are spearheading. And it's got a lot of links to, or several links to, a lot of information about opportunities to apply for some of the nationwide competitive funding opportunities. And so I'd just encourage you to pay attention to that. And I'll specifically note that there's a notice of funding opportunity out for 3 of those main competitive funding, nationwide competitive funding programs. And those applications are due May 23rd of this year. There should be an annual opportunity over the next 3 or 4 years to apply, but this year's opportunity, the deadline is May 23rd for the the Rural Surface Transportation Grant Program, and the Mega Grant Program. And there's a single, if you apply for one, you can apply for the other 2, depending on the specific eligibility criteria. You can apply for the other 2 at the same time. If you want to consider applying for that, just contact Mike or Miranda or myself, or I'm sure others can help point you in the right direction as well. But there is a registration process on grants.gov that takes anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks in order to apply. So time to start is now if you're interested in pursuing any of those for this year. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Wayne. Such a good man, this Wayne Benyon is such a good man. Listen, before I turn the time over to public comment, I want to recognize those of you online can see others who are joining on the Zoom call by virtue of scrolling through and seeing. But I want to recognize Natalie Hall, the new mayor of Bluffdale, who's joined us here in the room, and Carlton Christensen, also who've joined us live here in the room. But also online, Mayor Tammy Tran from Kaysville, would you like to take a minute and introduce yourself or tell us a little about you? Mayor Tran? She obviously loves her husband, as the picture shows online, and that's wonderful. We're really happy about that relationship thing you've got going on there. But we're going to now go to council member from Salt Lake City, Dan Dugan. Dan, can you tell us a little bit about you? Hit your green button there, or how that works. Thanks.
Well, thanks for allowing me to join this meeting and join this group. I've been on the city council now for 2 years. Transportation, public transportation, the air quality, and some other train infrastructure stuff are high on my agenda, and appreciate being part of this organization. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Member Dugan. All right, so we'll move now on to item number 3 on our agenda, which is public comment. Any from the public, either here in person or online, that would like to address the Transcom committee. If you're here in person, if you'd go to the mic. Rosie, anybody online you see?
Not that I can see, Chair.
Thank you. We'll move now to item number 4 then on our for our transportation, or a TIP, our Transportation Improvement Program. And this is a report on the board modifications for the 2022 to 2027 Transportation Improvement Program. These are the modifications for the Regional Council that was approved in March. Are there any questions? Hearing no questions,
I have a
go ahead.
question.
Kevin Cromer, go ahead.
Looking at are we looking at the board modifications
Yes,
here?
but make sure with that you're speaking into the mic. Thanks, so we can
Yeah,
hear you.
thank you. I just wanted to comment on the UTA locomotive rebuild. It's hard to do the exact numbers because we don't have all the technical details, but from what we have, this is a very cost-effective project from a cost per ton standpoint of pollution reduction. Much more cost-effective than our other CMAQ projects. So I think it's great it's in here. I think there's an opportunity to support this more in the future. It'd be well worth consideration. And if it was possible, I don't know if staff could maybe provide the cost effectiveness for that project. It'd be nice to compare that to the other CMAQ projects if possible.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kevin. We will follow up on that and be able to do that.
How about that for a quick response? That's pretty good.
I'd also,
Go ahead, please.
just while you're on that, Kevin, our funding, just a reminder, our funding for that locomotive rebuild actually was woven in with our support for the UTA Free Fare February program. So through supporting the locomotives, we were also able to help fund a significant, I think WFRC was actually the single largest funding partner for that effort, which, you know, we've had reports on this before, but overall it was quite successful. We're doing further analysis with UTA and our partners about doing additional free fare service, the possibility of making other services free on an ongoing basis. The study is still underway, but you just give us Kevin, you gave us an opportunity to just tout 2 really productive projects of late on air quality and transit. Thanks.
Super awesome, thanks. We also have Ben Wolfrich here. He's going to give us, he can also discuss this a little bit. Ben, go ahead.
As far as this particular project or the board model overall, or
Correct.
just forward on?
Overall.
Wonderful. Well, if I may, Mr. Chair, I will initiate the slides here because this all ties into the Transportation Improvement Program, or the TIP. And it's an acronym that you hear quite a bit, but sometimes you don't know exactly what it is. There's a TIP, there's a STIP, and there's quite a few other things. The STIP is the Statewide Transportation Improvement Program, but the TIP is a Transportation Improvement Program that the Wasatch Front has a responsibility to coordinate from Brigham City down to Utah County. And so with the Transportation Improvement Program, it's updated every year. And this year we're functioning under the 2022-2027 Transportation Improvement Program. And this document is updated every year, as we'll have conversation here a little later in preparation for the 23-28 TIP. But today, as the chair has identified, well, maybe let me tell you a little bit what the TIP does in a summary. So the TIP is a 6-year program of projects for highway transit and active transportation type projects. It implements the long-range transportation plan. It meets the short-range needs of our area, and it also maintains our existing system. And this body is going to see throughout this year that there are fairly regular, or we may just say periodic, updates to the Transportation Improvement Program. It's a very dynamic document. That's due to the timing of the projects, whether it's additional funds or new projects that are coming into the program. So do I continue, Mr. Chair, or did I not go where you needed me to?
Great job, and please keep going, Ben. You're doing wonderful.
Thank you.
Ben, is that a new logo?
That is a new logo, yes, for the 22,
It looks
27.
nice, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. A little streamlined. Anyway, so today, as was already reported on by the chair, there was a report on the board modification that the regional council took place on. And we'll show you those tables briefly, just so you're aware that information is in your meeting materials along with the signed resolution. But then the things that are important to you today, or for all of us today, is that we have a new board modification to come before you. And then we'll be renewing or reviewing the new projects to be included in the draft 23-28 TIP. So there's a lot going on with the TIP, and we're crossing multiple generations. Well, not really generations, but multiple years there. So we identified that there's a board mod in this table as well as this table. Are both included in your packet. As appreciate the comment there on this particular one with the commuter rail, where we were able to contribute our support into this. And this actually, it's back here on the bottom of this sheet here, but it gives us an opportunity there as we utilize the program to build and develop along the Wasatch Front, taking care of the responsibilities that have been entrusted in all of our care. So today, then, the new board modification before you, there is a table included in the meeting materials, and it includes two projects that need your review and approval. And to quickly review both of those projects, we'll begin here with the first one. It's a project up in Holiday on 5600 South. It's actually a bridge over the Jordan and Salt Lake Canal. This is a bridge replacement. This is a view looking south and a view looking north, standing on top of the structure. And here's a look underneath this particular structure. Now, this project is already programmed, but the Department of Transportation in this project is going to replace the existing bridge structure with a new box culvert. And this particular facility is a local jurisdictional facility. So the department, what they want to do is they want to take this project, which is currently funded with limited STP projects funds, and they want to bring that into the brand new bridge formula program. And that's going to allow the department to address a lot of local bridges along the off system. So what it is taking the old program of the STP bridge funds of 929,000 plus and moving it into the new bridge formula program for that same amount. This is going to allow the department to allow this bridge to happen a year earlier than what is currently programmed. So this is a win-win for all of us, and especially those that'll be driving over this facility. The next project is another bridge that's located in Taylorsville. This is on 4200 South, and this particular bridge is over the Jordan River or Jordan Canal. This project is also to replace this structure with a new structure. Here's a picture looking north and a picture looking south and picture looking underneath. Now, UDOT does a survey of all of the bridges statewide, but a lot of the priority goes to those bridges that are on facilities with a lot larger ADT than what generally takes place around these particular structures. But with the new bridge program, that will enable these types of projects to move forward and to be programmed. In fact, it's the goal of the department to do as many local government project bridges that are on the off system as possible with these funds, with this new funding source that's coming into the program every year. So this is a brand new project to the program with 1.9 million to be programmed. Total project cost is 1.9 million, and it'll replace this structure with a brand new box culvert. So those are the two projects that are before you right now for the board modification.
Thank you. That helps us very much. Great explanations. Board members, this requires action. Are there any questions regarding Ben's presentation before I call for action? Any in the chat? Carlton, it is a new logo. Yes.
No.
noticed that both of these are canals. Would the work just be done in the winter time? Is that the idea, or do they have a way to divert the canal during the construction?
I believe, I'll phone a friend here and ask Ben.
I don't specifically know on that, but I think that the general strategies are either when the canals are out or using other methods to do it while the water's in. I don't know specifically on those two.
Fall. I would guess fall, and it could be irrigation canal. Sorry. Okay, seeing none, I'll call for action. Is there a motion
Oh, I
to?
got one comment here,
Oh,
Jim, if I
Tom,
could.
I'm sorry, I missed you. Go ahead, please. Commissioner
I'm pretty
Tripp.
timid usually.
Yes.
Ben, we did a project out in Twilla County last year, about a $900,000 replacement of a bridge on what we call the Raleigh Road. Would that have been the kind of project that could have been used under this new type of funding?
Potentially, again, I'll default to Ben because they had their, yes, go ahead.
This would have been an industrial road mostly. It's a long road, but it's a bridge that was 56 years old or fairly old.
As Ben mentioned, there's a new federal program that came out with the new infrastructure bill. And Utah is going to get about 45 million a year. And as part of that, one of the elements of that bill is that it allows, there's a minimum requirement, and I think it's like 15% that needs to go to off-system bridges, which are roads that are not on the federal aid highway system.
Okay.
So that covers like many bridges. And the other thing with those off-system bridges is there's no required match now. That's kind of been the hurdle on some of those in the past. And then the target of that program is to target poor condition bridges. So like Ben mentioned, the types of bridges that the UDOT structures team is targeting initially are those local off-system bridges in poor condition that have been hard to get to before because of struggling with match and that type of thing. So I don't know specifically about that bridge, but it really opens it up to bridges that have been hard to get to before.
It was a bridge that had been declining for a while and it finally
Yeah.
crossed the magic threshold where we had to do something with it. So we went ahead and took care of that one, but this would be a possible funding source going
Yeah,
forward.
especially, poor condition off-system, especially in the early
Okay.
portions of this 5-year.
Thank
bill.
you.
Yep.
Chairman, I move we approve these two projects.
Why, thank you very much, Commissioner Tripp. We have a motion to approve the projects as outlined for the 2022 to 2027 Transportation Improvement Program, or the TIP there. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Very good. We have a couple of seconds. Andrea, you got those? Very good. If there's no other discussion, I'll call for that vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Okay, great. Motion carries. Great. Ben, let's move on a little bit. Let's take a look at that draft for the 2023-2028 Surface Transportation Program.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is an exciting opportunity for us. Every year as we have the opportunity to review brand new projects to bring into the Transportation Improvement Program, this body here is the one that makes those recommendations to the Regional Council. We'll walk through the process here on just where things begin. So every year in our August meeting of the Regional Council, we receive direction from the Regional Council to go out requesting for new projects. We send out what we call a request for letters of intent. Those requests for letters of intent go out to all the local governments, as well as the Department of Transportation and Utah Transit Authority. And that letter of intent is essentially the name of the project, a very brief description, and the amount of funds that they're estimating that the project will cost. That allows staff to do a real high level eligibility identification for the projects. Then we turn around and we ask that potential project sponsor to prepare and submit a concept report. That concept report is due back to us by the middle part of December. And at that time, we begin our evaluation process. So we bring in all of the data and we identify it and we put it in and we map it out and we begin our evaluation looking at all the different numbers. We'll ask for the length, the ADT, the amount of passengers. We'll go right into the dirt, but it's it's a form that asks the same questions of every project. Well, part of that is included with an on-site field review. So up in the Ogden-Layton area, it takes us a couple of days to do this in the Ogden-Layton. You can see we divided that by Davis County was on day one, and Weber County Box Elder was on day two. And we generally start about 7:30, 7:45, and we wrap up about 5 o'clock. You wonder where, let me just highlight a little on when we're out on their field reviews. In the past, we had a fairly large vehicle and we'd have personnel, we'd have UDOT, we'd have federal highways, we have UTA, and we have our staff, and sometimes we had other local government individuals. Well, when COVID hit a couple of years ago, I bet you didn't remember that one. There, we had the ability to go out on site in a van and meet with project sponsor was not a very good idea. We didn't want to jeopardize their health or anybody else's health. So we tried something brand new. We did a virtual tour. So we actually had a driver and an individual that went out on site with a laptop type tablet, and we Zoomed the project. So we went out, we met with the project sponsor. They told us all about it. And online, we had the individuals from our office, from UDOT, from Federal Highways, UTA. We had the whole team was there, and everyone could see the project because they're looking through the Zoom camera. They could ask the questions, and then we'd move on to the next project. This year, we hybrided that a little. So we had a few more on or with us, and then we had quite a few still with us on the Zoom. So we're able to get out and see the project. And you'll know in a minute how important that field review is. But so in the Ogden-Layton area, we looked at a total of 43 plus projects. And those project totals were more than 178 million, 176 million. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of projects. In the STP funds, there was more than 112 million requested. That's not the match. That was the requested federal amount that was asked for. And we had about just 16.5 million available. In the CMAQ, or the Congestion Mitigation Air Quality Funds, we had almost 10 million in request and a little more than 3.7 available to program. And in the TAP, we had 3.1 plus million asked for against 1.5 million available. You can see we had 28 STP projects, 5 CMAQ, and 10 TAP projects. A big ask. Well, then we go into the Salt Lake area. Again,
Ben, let me
Yes.
just interrupt you for 1 sec. I'm going to
Please.
ask you one question, but just as a reminder, just go back 1 slide. So Ben already said this just briefly, but I want to reiterate. These are 3 programs. They're federal funding that WFRC is responsible for allocating to projects in the region, right? This is one slice of the entirety of the transportation funding package that's at play in our region. The reason that we're talking about this here and that we work on it so much is that it's the responsibility of our organization in the areas that Ben's talking about to program, to receive requests, letters of intent and concept reports, communities asking, saying, here's a project in our community that we want to do. And then Ben and all of the team that he just talked about reviews those projects. And as Ben's noting, we get a lot more requests from your communities than funds are available. But we focus detail on this and this committee because we have that responsibility under federal law to program these funds. Ben, the question I just wanted to confirm, you went through and you talked about all the folks that do the field reviews with you.
Yes.
When you go to individual communities, I know this, but I'll just let you say it. Are the local communities also participating in those field reviews?
Yes, thank you, Andrew. So on site, we'll meet, generally it's the engineer and engineering staff. Sometimes it's elected officials that are there on site to walk through the project or to tell us all about it. Or if we're at a UDOT site or at a UTA site, it's other leadership that are there to answer questions, essentially sell the project. Tell us everything this project's going to do and why this project should be considered. Thank you. So then we move on to the Salt Lake area, and we divided that by east and west. Took us 2 days, again, about the same timeline there, but there were 58 projects. totaling more than $537 million. It's a lot of dollars. There was 140 plus million asked in the STP funds against about 31.3 plus million. In the CMAQ, there was 39 plus million asked against an available amount of 6.3 plus. And in the TAP program, it's 7.6 plus million asked against an available 3.8 million. Now maybe to just review, STP is Surface Transportation Program. CMAQ is Congestion Mitigation Air Quality Program, and TAP is Transportation Alternatives Program. Each one of them kind of has a little specialty that surrounds them. STP funds are more of those funds that are general, anything that's functionally on the functional classification system, like a collector or an arterial or a highway or freeway. The CMAQ project is a project that has to address air quality benefits. We have to have some emission benefits. Hence the comment there from Kevin there about the benefits that the locomotive rebuild brought to the program. Then the TAP program, Transportation Alternative Program, that's more of our recreational or the type that can do safe routes to school, bike and ped facilities. And so those are the projects we're going to talk about. So we got the projects and we looked at the data. So we took all the scores and we put them all in tables and we started to do all the calculations on the projects. And some of that criteria we looked at was congestion, access, whether that was access to opportunities or whether that was a delay reduction. We looked at the pavement condition or the conditions of the facilities. And we went through all of the data, and all of that data was able to generate a number or a score. And that was awesome. However, there's more to a project than can just be measured. Like for the length of a project, you got a specific measurement and can measure that against another length of the project. There's other relevant professional considerations that we use when we're identifying a good project. So we had the field review comments. What are the comments, or what did we see, or what did we feel when we were out on site? The equity of the funding, how are these funds distributed across the region or throughout the urban area or between the cities? The sponsors' project history. Do they got a lot of projects on the books? Are they slow to moving forward because their staff might not be as large or they've got so much going on? And then there's the synergy of the project. If this project's happening now, what else is happening that's going to benefit this project ahead of another? The timing efficiencies of the project or the completed system. Does this one complete the system, or is this just the first part to begin it? And then there's the project cost. Well, that's all good and said, but you know, sometimes it's not as easy to envision what we're really trying to accomplish with just words on the screen. So we've got a little object lesson that we would like to use. And we're pretty excited to be able to do a hybrid object lesson. We even invested in some upgrades to our audio system. There, can you still hear me? Yes, that's why I got the vest. It was tight enough, it wouldn't slide. So, okay. So many were probably wondering, wow, that's a cool chair with a cool box. I wonder why that's sitting there. But so, I don't know, is that still hearable? So we're gonna put a little example here for Project A. Can you see the Project A? And then we're gonna put over here Project B. Okay. Now, I'm going to introduce the projects. So this is Project A and this is Project B. And as they are, as we look at them right there, either project is a good project and will accomplish what needs to be done to make it happen. But How do you know which one's the best? Well, that's where we would, what the engineers say, or the engineers world would say, we'll use data. Actually, I guess it's what everyone says in any world, we use data. So if we bring out the data, we're gonna implement some data to these projects in our request. So we send out a letter of intent and we ask for specific information. And then that information is even enhanced a little more when we're asking through the concept development or the concept report. We want to know what information is going to help us identify a really good project. So both projects have the data that's coming in. Yes. There's a lot of data with transit. Okay, so, all right. So we got project A and we got project B, and we've gathered this data through the concept reports. Now, I don't know about you, but you know, either one still looks good. And I think if we stopped right now, we're all right. But if you're like me, I think I'm going to lean towards project A just because of the data. But if we were to stop there, I think we're missing something. If we were to look a little deeper, let's say we went out for the project sponsor history. Well, if we're looking at our projects, project A and project B, history with those, they're good project sponsors. And so we're gonna give them some credit there on the project sponsors. Good project sponsors. Well, and then what about the field review comments? You know, they're pretty important. Let me tell you, we were out on a project site once and we were standing on a road, and the road had a nice striped shoulder and everything was good. And then the local school let out. And we were standing there asking the sponsor about questions on the project. And we were watching these little 5 to 8-year-old kids ride their bikes down the road, and their handlebars were just inches from cars that were driving by. Now the cars were aware of the kids and the cars were going slow, but we literally had 12 to 18 inches between these large vehicles and these little tiny kids that are learning how to ride. We wouldn't have seen that by the data. We wouldn't have seen that by the picture. But when we're standing out on site, looking at the benefits of the project, that was something that really helped project B shine. Well, then there's other considerations. Maybe we look at the equity of the funding. How is the equity happening along this area? Well, in this particular case, it's fairly even. So project A and project B both have good equity in the funding. We'll put the equity funding over there. Well, then there's the synergy. What happens if we were to build the project right now? What else is going to happen? Maybe there's another additional project that's coming on. Maybe one of the counties or the neighboring city has already got a program in, and they're going to widen this road, put in a sidewalk, shoulder improvements with curb and gutter. Well, this little city here that's asking for the project, this would allow their project to dovetail right in there, so we wouldn't have a gap. So there's some synergy with that project. Well, project B, it had the synergy. That project brings a benefit. If it was to happen now, look at what we get in our system. And that's what we're kind of looking for. Well, you know, then we're looking at time and efficiencies. You know, is this one a good time for this one? What about this project? Is it a good time? Yeah, I think project A, that's pretty good. And project B, I think is really good too. Well, then What about the completion of the system? Now, these are only some of the other professional considerations that are used in the process. But hopefully it helps us identify when our system's complete, holy cow, let me tell you what that does. I'm shaking too much. Can you see that? Maybe I should put another one there just so you can all tell that that system got completed. There. So, you know, the data is important. We can't do things without knowing the data and getting a real base of where our projects are and what project's a good project. But you can't identify a good project on data alone. There is a lot of other factors that come into that, those other relevant professional considerations that need to be identified and need to be considered when we're looking at a good project. So now, project A, project B, which would you like? I think in this particular case, the cherries are going there. I think project B is the one that helps us identify that we're actually going to get more for our limited resources at this particular time if we go with project B. Project A may have a next year or the following year. But right now, this would be the project that would be recommended. So now to kind of help that, that's really kind of hard just to watch something like this. So now we've actually got a little treat. Ned, will you take care of that with a couple? While we put things back together.
For those in the room, could you give us a little bit of theatrics, maybe a little ooh? In a moment, I'll ask you to give a little, just a moment.
I do need a couple of volunteers for project A and project B. If you would please sample them, Chair, you would have the first call.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrea. Good. No, you gonna pass? Any, you know, when I was first saw this 5 or 6 years ago, I thought, one of these days I'm gonna get one of those ice cream sundaes, but I'm sitting here today going, nah, I can't. I can't do it.
You're cheering.
I think that because of that, I'd like to welcome in Dan Dugan from Salt Lake. Let's give him a project, and Carlton, let's give Carlton and Beth, they can sit there together and share one. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, thank you very much.
Great. Okay,
And,
now.
and everybody else in the room gets a smaller project,
Yeah.
we say, that our staff are handing out.
Okay, everybody ready for the next side? Ready? Boy, sure wish all of you online were here. Oh, man.
Well, it's about time we have the board for.
Go ahead, Kevin, please.
Ben, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Do the project sponsors have a chance to resort their priorities after you've gone through the Sunday building process? Or do we use the priorities on initial submission as you guys evaluate it?
That's an excellent question. Actually, we're working with the sponsors the whole time along. And so we have open communication with them as we're moving forward. So you'll notice that we have on their sponsor priority. And that's when a sponsor submits multiple projects on there that we want to know, hey, out of all these projects you submitted, what's the most important one to you if we're only going to be able to fund one? And they tell us, but that's just for our information. You'll see as we go through here that we may have passed one that ranked higher to address a priority lower that particular city had. But it's another one of our resources to be able to identify. But then when we're out on site and we're having opportunities to stand there or talk about it over the phone or something, there is that we'll do push and pull back and forth with information or helping them realize that there's some benefit if you were to consider this, and that enables them to improve their project.
Just so I can clarify, so I'm understanding, what we see in the spreadsheet and we select, sponsor priority 3 over 1 or 2. Is that 3, is that from an earlier time, or is that after they've seen all that and heard all that rationale? Do they still rank it 3? And I guess when is the number in the spreadsheet finalized? Is it earlier on, or does that take place after all that interaction?
That takes place after all the interaction.
Thank you.
Wait,
Thank
can I-
you.
Ben, Kevin, I
Please.
just want to make sure we're clear. There is a recommended prioritization of award programming of the funding to the various projects that are reflected in the spreadsheet. And that's what the process that Ben just went through and this committee gets to vote on and then the council votes on. In addition to that, each of the sponsors of projects, a city or a county will submit, they may submit multiple projects, and that community will indicate of those, 2, 3, 5, whatever projects they submit, we ask them to prioritize themselves among those projects. Is it that individual community prioritization that you're
That's
getting
what
at?
I'm asking about. And I'm
Okay.
wondering if some of the numbers we see, is it from they initially submit and they haven't had the benefit of all the feedback from WFRC, from the site visits and everything?
Oh, I see.
Or
I
is that
see.
updated later after they've seen the Sunday built?
I
they
mean,
can say,
it can be updated, but I'll tell you that typically a community, Bluffdale, let's say, Bluffdale will submit X number of projects, and based on their community prioritization, they know what their highest priority is. But then the process that we go to from a regional perspective we'll try to factor in the local community prioritization, but that is not outcome determinative. It's one of the factors that gets considered. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Kevin. Okay, so are we all right then to proceed?
Please.
Mr. Chair, okay, wonderful. So then. That was slow. That was supposed to pop up a little quicker, but anyway, you can see though, the significance of having good data and in having those other relevant professional considerations. There's a lot more when you're out in the project. So then the tables that you have that were included in your meeting materials are actually summaries of our evaluation data sheets. The data sheets that we come in have, sometimes they're 2 Excel sheets through, meaning that you go all the way to the number of columns that Excel allows you to have. Anyway, so we do all of the calculations, and we've got the STP, or the Surface Transportation Program. Those tables are included in your meeting materials. We've got the Congestion Mitigation Air Quality Program. And if you'll notice, when you're going through, maybe let me back up here, the criteria for these projects are different. So the STP projects have a different criteria than what the CMAQ projects have. And the CMAQ projects also have a different criteria than what the TAP projects have. Now, something unique on the TAP, just to help you understand, we've got 3 colors on there identified on the top, but your blue coloring identifies those capital type improvements. Red coloring identifies planning or studying or design type projects. And in the green are safe routes to school type projects. And so we have a different ranking on all of those. So after we go through all of this information, we go through everything that we've talked about, using all of our resources. Then we have opportunities for multiple discussions. We talk in-house with staff. We take the information from staff to our upper management. They push back, we go back down, we look at other information, and we gather all that we can. And then we go to the technical advisory committees, which are made up of the city engineers, public works, and city representatives in the technical advisory committees. There's 2 of these. There's one in the Ogden-Layton urban area. So it's any of that technical advisory committee member from Brigham City all the way down through North Salt Lake. Then we've got the Ogden-Layton urban area, the Salt Lake West Valley urban area, and that's from essentially North Salt Lake down to Utah County. And those individuals make up our technical advisory committees. So then we get the recommendations on the projects. And that's where there were 9 projects identified in the Ogden-Layton urban area for funding, totaling more than 16.7 plus million. And there were 11 projects in the Salt Lake West Valley urban area, totaling more than 31.4 plus million. The idea is to run through these projects with the information that you have on your tables to familiarize you a little more with the projects. Now, we're only going to go through the projects that have been recommended. So we're not going through all 100 plus of the other projects or of all the projects. So starting there then, how we're going to do this, this is a slide that we developed for our road show. That's where we take all this information in February, present it to the tax. Then we bring that information back so that they're familiar with the project when we discuss it and talk in March. So the very first project there was Clinton City on 1300 North and 1500 West. There's a reconstruction with minor widening on both of these facilities coming towards an intersection that this body recommended funding for several years ago. The total project cost is 3.8 plus million. They requested 3 million. And with staff and the technical advisory committee recommended we program $2 million. So if you're looking then at the tables, just to familiarize, and then we won't. So the projects that are recommended are the ones that are highlighted. And then the amount that's being recommended is the one that's in the far left column in dark blue with white numbers. Yes, please.
Okay, can they do the project for 2 million, or it's just sort of up to them to close the gap, or do you, I mean, when you lower it beyond the low, funding request, is the project still doable by the entity?
Yes, thank you. So in part of our evaluation process, as we're going through, we look at also other resources. Now, years ago, there was very limited resources for local government. Nowadays, there's quite a few available options. And so we're looking at how we can make this program go as far as we can, and still that they have options to identify other funds. So we're kind of seeding the pot with these monies. We talk to the project sponsor, and the conversation goes something like, if we're able to put some money towards this project, are you able to find additional funds for the project? Usually the response is yes. Yes, we can do that. With the understanding that when push comes to shove and we're 6 years down the road and they haven't been able to find other funds, they can come back to this body and ask the other funds, give a report and say, we've done everything we possibly can. We're $1 million short to get this project done that's programmed. Can we get 500,000 in additional funds? And that's one of the board modifications that we'd come back to this body and request. So thank you. Excellent question. We all right? So the next project then that's on there is a project in West Bountiful. This is on 1100 West. This is a road improvements with minor widening, some reconstruction between 200 North, 400 North. Project estimated cost is $1 million plus. Fund being requested is 657,000 plus, and the TAC recommended the full 657,000 plus. The next project is a project in Woods Cross. This is also on 1100 West, between 2185 South to 1100 North, which is 2600 South if you're passing them on the freeway. The project estimated cost is 3.9 plus million. The request was for 3 million. TAC recommended 2 million for this project as well. The next project is a project in Plain City. This is on 1975 North. This is a reconstruct with minor widening. This is a narrow 2-lane facility. It's to put curb, gutter, and sidewalk on the north side of the facility. Project estimated cost is 5.1 plus million. The request was for 2.3 plus million. See, this is one of those where you can see that sponsors coming to the table with potential additional funding on this project already. They're strategizing. The TAC recommended that the 2.3 plus million be programmed for the project. The next project is a project in Centerville City. This is on 400 East. This is the last section of 400 East that needs to be reconstructed with improved bike ped facilities. This goes from 100 South to 400 South. Project estimated cost is 1.4+ million. The funds being requested is a little more than $1 million, and the TAC recommended the full request of $1 million+. Next project is in West Haven. This is to realign 1800 South to 1900 West. This project is important both to the city and to the Department of Transportation. One for traffic control and safety, but the other one is there's development happening on the east side of 1900 West that will bring 2 additional intersections to this area, requiring 2 high Ts to be constructed, which would totally devastate the ability of this road to be functionally, well, the mobility on it would drop. What this would do is realign it to allow one central signalized full intersection to be constructed on 1900 West. So this is a request from the city at the request of the department. The request was, or total project is 1.6+ million. The request was for 1.1+ million, and the TAC recommended the full requested amount. The next project is in Perry City. This is on 1100 West. This is an exciting project for this part of the county up there in Box Elder. Years ago, we approved an intersection. Transcom approved an intersection on 1100 South, 1200 West. That intersection was built with nowhere to go. This project will construct that first phase of the road, which will open that intersection up to the 1200 West, giving us an alternative route to US 89. Project estimated cost was $5 million initially. And Kevin, this is where initially their request was for 4.5 million. And so after the field review and review with them, the request came back for 2.7+ million. They're coming to the table with other resources. The TAC recommended the full 2.7. So that's where that communication was beneficial for them. The next project is in Ogden City. This is in preparation for the BRT that we've all been working hard to happen, and UTA especially, but on 25th Street and also part of 4400, the reconstruction of these facilities was not identified in the initial project. Those facilities can't handle the big electric proposed buses that are going to go on there. The facilities would fall apart shortly after the BRT is opened, and that would create, well, it'd be very disappointing for those who had to go somewhere else to ride it until the roads were reconstructed. The request was initially for 4.4+ million. Total project was a little more than 9 million. Within communication with Ogden City, the TAC recommended 3.3+ million for the project. The next project is in UTA. This is a front runner right away. We add 2 new pictures in the middle. This is on the commuter rail line up there at Pleasant View. You look going north, they got development happening right in the corridor, right on the tracks, essentially. This is for corridor preservation. We had 1.5 million available. We wanted to seed the pot. Talking to UTA, was that worth it, or are we just throwing money away? And they says it absolutely will help us seed the pot, initiate the process for corridor preservation. So the TAC recommended the 1.5+ million. That moves us into the Salt Lake area, and this is where we get a little twist. I want to, that picture drops right in the wrong place. Right there under the word project is number 14. On your sheets, if you were to scroll the page a couple of pages and go to project number 14, that was a project that was recommended when we went through the TAC and we had the conversation with the TAC committee. It was for a bridge on 4015 West in Kearns. However, it was identified that that project may have some funding allocated to it from the legislative session in House Bill 2. So they gave direction that it stays on the program until it's verified that there is other funds for the project. If there are other funds for the project, then the money that was programmed for this, the 1.7+ million, which was initially recommended, be divided up and spread amongst the 8 projects that were only partially funded. And so The sheets were all prepared with all this project in it. You have numbers in your project that all went out. And the day after you got your sheets, we got confirmation that the project had funding. We didn't want to send out new sheets and have everyone kind of confused or using the right or the wrong. So from this point forward, you're going to see the project. So there it was, project portion there, part of House Bill 2. We're grateful for all the legislators, what they do. But you're going to see, and I'll use this one as the first one. This is a project on 900 West in Salt Lake City between North Temple, 600 North. Estimated project cost is $7+ million. The request was for 3.5. The TAC recommended that we go 3 million on the project. But now with this alternative additional funds, you can see that we added the 215,000 plus, which is 1/8 of 1.7+ million. Does that make sense? Okay, so we'll just fly on then. So the next project then is in Mill Creek City. This is on 1300 East between 3300 South and 3600 South, just under a half mile in length. $6.9 million is the estimated project cost. Request was for 4.9+ million. Initially, it was recommended at 3.5 million with the additional 215,000 plus. The recommended amount is 3.7+ million. Next project is in South Jordan. This is on an intersection project on 4000 West and South Jordan Parkway. This is to put an additional through lane in all movements as well as an additional turn lane, whether it's a left turn lane or a right turn lane. Project estimated cost is 5+1 million. Funds being requested is 4.8+ million, and the TAC recommended 3 million plus 215, so 3.2+ million. The next project is a project in West Valley. This is in West Valley Magnet. 7200 West is the boundary between the two cities. This road is the closest to gravel in Salt Lake area. It's really having some rough time. This is for a reconstruct with minor widening. It's a large facility. They've been asking for a number of years. Project cost is 7+ million. Funds being requested is 6.6+ million. It was recommended at 4.5+, and then the additional makes it 4.7+ million. The next project is in Murray City, this 5600 South reconstruction project between 9th East and 13th East. This project is estimated 8.5+ million. Funds being requested is 7.9+ million. It's recommended at 4.8+ million with the 215,000 plus makes it $5+ million for the project. The next project is in Midvale. This is for a new construction on Tuscany Road, which will go from 8th West to Holden Street, opening up the west side to the east and the east side to the west. Estimated project cost is 6.1+ million. Funds being requested 5.6. TAC recommended to 3.3+ with the additional funds is 3.5+ million. The next project is a UTA request. This is on the Mid Valley Connector. This is for bus lanes between the Murray Station to West Valley. Estimated project cost for the full project is 29+ million. Funds being requested are 3 million. We recommended the 2 million plus the additional is 2.2+ million. The next project is in West Jordan. This is on 1300 West. It's a project that we've approved funds for in the past between 6600 South and 9400 South. You may recall 1300 West has been identified as the bicycle corridor through Salt Lake Valley. And so this is to improve through the intersections as well as through the straight shots. This is more for right-of-way. They requested the 2 million for the right-of-way and it was recommended the full 2 million. We did not add additional on this one. The next project is a request from UDOT. This is on 7th East. This is an awesome project along the west side of 7th East. UDOT has some right-of-way along there. They thought, how can we better use this facility? They said, let's make a shared use bike ped facility. It goes from 2100 South to 1300 South. Estimated cost is 2.9+ million. The request or funds requested is 2.7+. We're addressing it in this program at 1.5 million, but we'll be back to talk about this one in a minute. The next
Ben-
project
Ben,
then,
Excuse me,
Yes.
just for a moment. I just want to note that for projects that are UDOT projects or UTA projects, what everybody should understand is that those are projects that are also supported by the local community. So that project, for example, is in Salt Lake City. It's on a UDOT road, 7th East, but it is something that the city wants. The UTA projects on the BRT line, it's a UTA system, but they're also supported by the 3 communities that BRT line goes through. So there's a lot of collaboration there.
thank you, Andrew. Okay, next project in Magna, this on 2700 South and 80th West. This is for intersection improvements. This will realign and offset intersection. Funding has been programmed for this. We sent them, this is one of those where we sent them to find additional funds for the right-of-way portion. They did everything they could, but because of the condition of the facility and that it's eminent domain type of work, it gets pushed back to us. And so they came back and requested 3.7+ million. We recommended the 2 million plus the additional at 2.2. They're confident that they can move forward on this project. That is all of the STP projects that were recommended. Are there any questions? Yes.
I don't want to second guess TAC on their recommendation, how to redistribute funds from that one project. Was there any consideration given to making it proportional to the project cost as opposed to the same fixed amount for each of the partially funded projects?
Briefly, amongst a few, but when the recommendation came to equally distribute it amongst the 8 projects, that was where they went with it.
Well, and everyone was doing mental math along the way. Magna's both the low and the high, so maybe it squishes to the middle anyway. So maybe it doesn't matter too much anyway.
Yes. Are we all right to continue?
Please continue.
Do we need another ice cream? There were ice cream.
You're good,
You
you're
need
good.
just
You're-
to stay awake.
Are you, any other ice cream for the? Go ahead. Hold on.
Couple more scoops over here and there.
Let's do this because we'd like to, for all those you members, we're going to divide this up into 3 different areas. We're going to divide it up into the STP, the CMAC, and the TAP. So on the STP, let's take a motion now for just the STP portion of this. Ben, council members, are there any questions on any of that? Yes, Tom?
Quick question. When we talk about urban areas being Ogden, Layton, and Salt Lake West Valley, how does that play in here? Do you have to be in those areas?
If I may.
For
I'll-
example, I noticed one from Perry up in Box Elder County.
Right.
Is that part of that area?
Yes, and that,
And out in Tooele, we've got non-attainment listed on our UDAQ, but we're not available for CMAC funds.
well, so Tooele Valley is actually eligible for CMAC funds. The CMAC funds are that are administered by UDOT and not by WFRC. The CMAC funds come in an apportionment statewide, and then that's split among by population among the only among the non-attainment areas. But these 2 urbanized areas are defined by the census. So every 10 years, an urbanized area might, in Utah's case, might grow. And back in the 2010 census, the Ogden-Layton urbanized area was expanded because of census definition to include up through Brigham City and Box Elder. And so.
But our
the-
regulations don't specify that.
Well, so it's determined by federal regulations.
Well, let
not-
me get offline with you and talk.
Yeah, you bet. Be happy to.
Every community in the state has the ability to get all funds from all of these sources. Just the communities that are in urban areas get them through a metropolitan planning organization like WFRC. And then communities in non-urban areas like Tooele County get them through UDOT. And WFRC through the rural planning organization, the Tooele RPO or the Morgan RPO, we work with you to access funds. So, yeah. And then if there's more for you guys to talk about, you can. Okay.
answer your question, Commissioner?
Put me on the trail.
Good, good, thank you. Any other questions? Because I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the STP at this time.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the projects for draft 2023 to 2028 STP program.
Thank you, Mr. Cromar. That's a motion. Is a second? Thank you. Second. I'll call for that vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Very good. Thank you. Online. Any opposed? Very good. Thank you. Looks like it's unanimous. We're going to have you move now to the CMAC, I believe.
Thank you. So in a similar format as we saw, the TAC committees recommended 3 projects in the Ogden-Layton urban area totaling more than 3.7+ million, and 5 projects in the Salt Lake West Valley area totaling more than 6.3+ million. And review those projects fairly quickly. We go first of all into the Ogden-Layton area. The first project there being recommended is a pedestrian overpass over the rail there of the Union Pacific, as well as the commuter rail tracks. Project estimated cost is $6 million. Funds being requested is $3.6 million. And the TAC felt comfortable with programming $2 million towards this project. The next project is for an expansion of the bike share program in Ogden City. This is in various areas down in the central business district. Estimated project cost is $760,000 plus. Funds being requested are a little more than $700,000, and the TAC recommended that we program $500,000. This is one of those projects that can be incrementally improved. The next project, and the last one in the Ogden-Layton urban area, is an improvement to an offset intersection. This is in West Point on 4500 West, which is a state facility, and 300 North. The estimated project cost is 1.3+ million. Funds being requested is 1.2+ million. And this is to construct a roundabout in this area. And the TAC recommended the full requested amount. That moves us into the Salt Lake West Valley urban area. The first project there is a project on 200 South. This is between 300 East and 400 East. This is to expand or to create a transit hub there in Salt Lake City. Last year, the request came in for some improvements to the bus hubs and the bus parking. This year, the request came in for additional structure and bus hub and parking. It was determined that where our benefits would show in the CMAQ and what was eligible was to put additional funds on the bus parking facilities on this. So the request shows 3.9+ million. That's for the fuller build out, but what was eligible was recommended of the 924,000 plus. The next project is in South Jordan or West Jordan. This is an intersection project on 7800 South and 6400 West. This is to complete a roundabout intersection. Estimated project cost is 1.4+ million. Funds being requested is 1.3+ million. The TAC recommended the full requested amount. Next project is a project in Riverton. This is phase 1 of the Welby-Jacob Canal Trail through Riverton between 126 South and 134 South. This project not only will be a commuter type facility, but it'll also be a safe routes for school. Estimated project cost is 1.3+ million. Funds being requested 1.2+ million, and the TAC recommended the full requested amount. The next project is an expansion to the Salt Lake Green Bike. This is again as this facility continues to expand. Project estimated cost is 643,000, and well, thanks.
You've been doing a lot of talking. Just give
2
me a
months.
moment, right? No, you're doing great.
Thank you. Anyway, expansion of the Green Bike project, funds being requested is 600,000, and the TAC recommended 444,000 plus. The next project is a UTA request. This is also part of the Mid-Valley Connector. This is for a hub there at Salt Lake Community College in the southeast corner of the campus. Project estimated cost is 3.8+ million. Funds being requested is $3 million and the TAC recommended $2.3 million. That is all of the CMAQ or congestion mitigation air quality projects being recommended.
Members, any questions regarding the CMAQ projects? Andrew?
I just want to emphasize one thing that this committee has talked about a lot in the past. The CMAQ projects, it's a program that requires an evaluation of projects on the basis of their improvements to air quality and also looks at other benefits to the projects. So there's a whole range of factors that are considered. One of the data metrics that we were talking about before is air quality. That's required for this program. We're able to and do look more broadly at other factors that are relevant to evaluating the benefits that these projects provide.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you. No other questions? Online? Seeing none, call for a motion to approve the CMAQ plan that's been presented. I can't take all these motions at once. Can you please identify yourself?
Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Carlton Christensen with UTA.
Okay.
I would move approval of the CMAQ recommendations.
Thank you very much.
Second.
Second. Thank you, Dan. All right, we have a motion and a second. I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Good, motion carries. Any opposed? Very good. Thank you very much. Let's move on to the TAP now.
Thank you. So in the TAP program, it's kind of exciting. As many of you are familiar with IIJA or the new transportation bill, we received additional funding in the Transportation Alternative Program. And so this year that elevated our ability to program more than in the past. We had 7 projects recommended in the Ogden-Layton urban area, totaling more than 1.4+ million. In the Salt Lake West Valley area, there were 9 projects recommended for more than 3.7+ million. Reviewing those projects quickly, we have the first project in Layton City. This is a safe routes to school on 3200 West between 650 North and West Hillfield Road. Project estimated cost is $166,000. Funds being requested is $81,000 plus. TAC recommended the full requested amount. Next project is in South Weber. This is on the Weber River Trailhead connection. This is phase 3 of this project of a 5-phase project. Project estimated cost is $499,000 plus. Funds being requested is $318,000 plus, and the TAC recommended the requested $318,000 plus. One of these phases was funded last year as well. The next project is in North Salt Lake. This is on Redwood Road. On the west side of Redwood Road, there are 3 areas that have yet to have any sidewalk or pedestrian facility. Estimated cost is $283,000 plus to complete these facilities. Fund requested is $226,000, and the TAC recommended the full requested amount. The next project is a project in South Weber. This is another phase of the Weber River Trail. This gives us an opportunity this year to take care of another phase of this project. This particular project is phase 2, which will actually be on the east side of 89 going up Weber Canyon. The project estimated cost is $474,000 plus. Funds being requested are $325,000 plus. And the TAC recommended the full requested amount. The next project is in Plain City. This is also safe routes to school on 1500 North between 4825 West and 4920 West. This is where the school kids are either cutting across the farmer's field or walking in traffic. Project estimated cost is $128,000 plus. Funds being requested is $102,000 plus, and the TAC recommended the full requested amount. That brings us into one more in Centerville City. This is an exciting one. For many years, Centerville City's been seeking funds on 1250 West to go essentially from Parish Lane north to get onto the Legacy Parkway Trail. However, in coordinated effort with the Department of Transportation and the city and us, they're looking at ways to be able to go directly down Parish Lane. So you can see on the pictures, the pink line or the yellow big line is what the request is, but it's been adjusted that it'll go directly west on Parish Lane. So it essentially goes from the I-15 west right to the Legacy Trail itself. So a project estimated cost is over 956,000, requesting 891,000, but it's recommended now that we could do this for a little more than 250,000 plus. So we got a good connector with a lot less money with the help of the department. The next project is the design of the Utah-Idaho Central Railroad Corridor, which essentially goes from Willard north up to Box Elder at 8700 South. The project estimated cost is 200,000. Funds being requested is 186,000 plus, and the TAC recommended the full requested amount. That brings us into the Salt Lake projects. The very first project on there is a project we just reviewed in the STP funds, where we partially funded this project. The TAP funds was recommended from the TAC committee to make this project whole. So we're recommending the additional $1 million on this project, and then the 1.5 million of the STP, giving us a total of 2.5 plus million. The next project is a project in West Valley. This is a project that completes the gap. This is on the Crosstown Trail between 2700 West to Bangerter Highway, about a mile and a quarter in length, but the estimated cost is 1.7 plus million. Funds being requested is 300,000, and the TAC recommended the full requested amount. The next project is in Salt Lake City. This is for a design study or a study for design there on Foothill Drive to address ped and bike movements across the facility there between 1300 East and the Parley's interchange. Project estimated cost is 584,000 for the full. The TAC recommended that we address part at a time, and so they recommended 300,000. The next project is in West Jordan. This is on the Canal Trail South. This will tie in to the TOD and a track station, as well as the McKaylee Circle there and the hospital and the Jordan Valley Transit Center. Anyway, project estimated cost 167,000 plus. Funds being requested was 155,000 plus. TAC recommended the full requested amount. The next project is in Taylorsville City. This is for construction of missing sidewalk on 5400 South between 1300 West and the Mill Race Park. Project estimated cost is 600,000. The funds being requested a little more than 550,000, and the TAC recommended the full requested amount. Next project is for bike lanes through Harriman on 118 South to 134 South, about 2.3 miles worth of bike lanes. Project estimated cost 125,000. Funds being requested is 97 plus thousand. TAC recommended the full requested amount. The next project is in Compwood Heights. This on Fort Union Boulevard. This is to construct a hawk system across Fort Union. Currently, the kids just cross that street. The school there is on the lower part of the screen. They do have a crossing guard during school hours, but all the other time it's however quick you can dash. Project estimated cost 487,000. Funds being requested is 454,000. TAC recommended the full funded request. This is another one that we don't have data to show any safety issues in this area, but using other professional considerations helps us identify a pretty important project. Next project's in Murray. This is on 4800 South under I-15. This is to construct, the bike lanes go up to the facility and then they disappear because of the narrowness underneath the facility. It's to push back the bridge abutment and move the sidewalks over so we can have bike lanes underneath the facility. Project estimated cost is 880,000 plus. Funds being requested is 630,000, and the TAC recommended 600,000. The next one is the UTA first mile, last mile. This is down at the point of the mountain. This will go from the Draper Front Runner Station up to the Highline Commercial Special District. This is a design of the facility. Project estimated cost is 500,000. Funds being requested is 466,000 plus. TAC recommended that we put 300,000 towards this project. That completes all of the projects in the TAP program for your consideration.
Questions for Ben?
Yeah, on the one project in Salt Lake City on Foothill, it said 13th East. Is that clear from 13th East or did you mean 13th South?
It actually, what happens is Foothill Boulevard turns and goes west down to 13th East. And
Thank
so it's to take in that whole curve all the way over. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Smolka. Other questions?
Can I ask a quick question about just the process in general? Would people that are trying to apply for these for the first time, is there some way that they can get help or get some instruction on how to do it correctly?
I'll initiate that. Yes, the answer is yes to that. So this process initiates every fall in September with the letter of intent. But throughout the year, our staff is available when we've got experts on various programs here. So Hugh is one that will oversee or coordinate our efforts with active transportation. And then Kip is one that oversees or coordinates our interaction on CMAQ projects. And I have the opportunity to coordinate that on the STP project, but actually all of us can work on everything and everything works on us. So we all work together.
Councilmember Granado, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
You bet.
I've got the names written down.
Yeah, we have a person in Weaver County that's too designated to help us, who's really in tune with that. And likely in some of the class 1 and class 2 counties, you would have a person that would help with that. So you may want to check in those. Thank you. Any other questions for Ben before I ask for a motion on the TAP? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve those items presented for this 2023 to 2028 TAP program. Excuse me, the draft for the 2024 TAP program. My bad.
No worries.
Thank you. I'm not worried, but thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Chair, I would move that we approve the recommendations.
Thank you, Carlton. Have a motion?
Kevin Van Tassen seconds.
Thank you very much. We've got 2 seconds. Thank you very much. Motion and a second. I'll place that motion for vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Great. Thank you very much. This, members, this, especially with Ben's ice cream presentation and things, it shows you that it's not all about the technical scoring that goes into this, but there are other things that if you add to it that can really complete the project and eventually get that cherry on top for your project.
Thank you.
Yeah, isn't that it? Wonderful job again, Ben. Just a wonderful job. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, thank you. Thanks for all that you do. It's our committees that make things happen. So thank you.
Great. I appreciate that very much. Members, Wayne, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just clarify for the record that these actions today on adding projects to these programs, that's a recommendation from Transcom to the Regional Council. The Regional Council will take action on these, adding these projects to these programs at their May meeting.
But there is no ice cream provided to the council when they get to consider these. So, hey, Ben, thank you very much to you, to our whole team, UDOT, UTA, the cities, the counties, all the folks that go through all the work to evaluate in the really detailed way that Ben described. I'll just say that it's a great process. We wish we had enough resources to fund every project that was applied for. We don't, as Ben noted, it's typically 5 to 6 to 1 on the applications to available funds. But that's why it's so important that we all work together, pool our resources and prioritize and move things forward. And over the course of years, even if your community doesn't have projects that are recommended for funding in this year's cycle, it probably has projects that are already in the program funded in previous years. And we repeat this process every year. So there's always another opportunity to come back and keep moving projects forward. And sort of to echo what Councilmember Granado was saying, we want to make this as easy for your communities as we possibly can. Everybody at WFRC is here to help you. We're not trying to trip you up because you missed a form or whatever. Our goal, our job is to help you achieve your objectives within that regional context. So whether you're new or you've been doing this for a long time, doesn't matter to us. We're here to help you. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you so much. Are there any other comments or business to be had? I see my hero, the mayor of Roy, Bob Dandoy, on the line with his Bob Ross background there. Anything from you, Mayor? Great.
So thank you.
With nothing else, then I'll make a motion for adjournment. Entertain one. Motion? Second non-debatable? We're adjourned. Sorry.